What's up, y'all? Hey, this is gonna be a segment on. I'm gonna talk about if Carmelo Anthony is he done, especially done as being a franchise player. Now, Carmelo Anthony, when I first got wind of Carmelo Anthony, I seen him, with Syracuse as a freshman. He was able to take Syracuse to the national title, and that was impressive for a freshman to come in, and he led that squad. I mean, they had a pretty good team. They had a pretty good team on that, with that squad that he was on. But he clearly led the team. I believe he led the team in scoring in the tournament. He was dominant. He was unstoppable in the tournament. So him coming into the league in 2003 along with Dwayne Wade, who also came up on the scene in the NCAA tournament, and LeBron James, of course, came from high school. We all know he was on the cover of a lot of sports magazines. He came in. Chris Bosh was in that class as well. That was a pretty good class, 2003, and I thought Carmelo Anthony was gonna, be able to be a player, a transcendent player, to be able to, possibly win, a couple titles. He went to Denver. He did good at Denver. His rookie year, they went to the playoffs. I believe Carmelo Anthony did go to the playoffs every year with Denver. And I think it took LeBron James 2 years before he went to the playoffs with Cleveland. I really thought that Carmelo Anthony should have been the Rookie of the Year that year, because simple fact is he took his team to the playoffs, and LeBron James did not go to the playoffs. Now LeBron James was terrific that year. Carmelo Anthony was maybe a half a step, behind him, maybe a half a step. But the fact that he took his team to the playoffs as a rookie, and I believe he led the Denver Nuggets in scoring his rookie year. I thought that should have been enough for him to, have the Rookie of the Year over LeBron James. Now, I understand people giving it to LeBron James. He came out of high school. He had a lot of hype on him. His debut against the Sacramento Kings, I think he scored like 25, 26 points, something like that. So, people was mesmerized by that. But Carmelo Anthony was largely forgotten. He was a guy that came from college and just led his team to the national title. So I thought he should have got a little bit more respect in that. But Carmelo Anthony, he made the playoffs every year with Denver. I believe they went to the Western Conference Finals. I believe they did go to the Western Conference Finals. You have to. I believe that's when they had Chauncey Billups. I believe that's when Chauncey Billups came to the team that year. Somebody can, what I'm saying, y'all can correct me on that. I'm not, really looking it up. It's just my memory, But Carmelo Anthony, he just was not good enough to lift his team to a title, because although Carmelo Anthony is a dominant scorer, he did not put out on the defensive end, not even in his younger years. Usually guys in their younger years, they are better defensively. Now, when they get a little older, you can't ask them to play, a lot of, take a lot of shots or expend a lot of energy on both ends. But he just was never a dominant player, and he was kind of like a black hole. He didn't pass that well. He wasn't a willing passer. Now, I believe he can pass because he can play basketball, but he was not a willing passer. And George Karl made a statement, he said Carmelo Anthony was one of the best offensive players he's ever seen, but he was always trying to get Carmelo Anthony to get his team involved, because he said he believed Carmelo Anthony could have averaged 6-7 assists easy, but he was not a willing passer. A lot of people are down on Carmelo Anthony's career, but you have to really look at the fact that this guy was able to get his first 6 years in Denver. I believe he was there for 6 years, because he did sign an extension after his rookie year, so he was there 6 or 7 years. He got them to the playoffs every year, and every year they improved. Every year they improved by 3-4 games every year. So yes, he had a successful career, if you want to say that, but he didn't win a title. But it's plenty of great players that didn't win a title. He did win a scoring title. I think a couple scoring titles. Carmelo Anthony, he did get some help when Chauncey Billups got there. I believe that was a pretty good team. I believe J.R. Smith was on that team too, because him and J.R. Smith did play at Denver together. But they were in the Western Conference, and in the Western Conference, some tough teams. L.A. was at their peak. That's when the Kobe had Gasol. The Spurs were real good. Dallas was good. It was a lot of teams that were good in the West, and he was unable to lift his team, into the finals. But I think his career to me, I don't think Carmelo Anthony really got out of what he needed to get out of it, because in looking at him with the Denver Nuggets, he wanted out. I guess him and George Karl wasn't getting along, and he wanted to get out. And and that was a good New York team that he wanted to go to. He's from New York. He was born in New York. I think he grew up in Baltimore, but he was born in New York, and he wanted to go to New York. And that was a good New York team. They had some really good young pieces on that team. Instead of him waiting to the offseason, playing out the rest of the season in Denver, he forced a trade, and then New York had to trade all their good assets. I believe, Denari Gallinari was in that trade. He was a pretty good young player. The New York Knicks had drafted him the year previous, and he was a pretty good player, putting up good numbers for New York. 6'10" guy that can do everything on the perimeter. Kind of like, the guys that these NBA teams are looking for today. They're looking for that versatile big man, 6'10", 6'9". They can shoot the three, shoot the mid-range. So Carmelo Anthony forced his way out, and when he got to New York, the team was demolished. They had to get rid of a lot of players. I believe they had a three team deal, and they sent like players all over the place. And New York lost like 4 or 5 good core pieces. So when he got to New York, the cover was bare. And when he got to New York, they did make the playoffs a couple times. They had a decent team, but at that time Chicago was good. You had Miami with their big three. You had Boston Celtics, so he was unable to get past those teams. He was not going to get past those teams because, yes, he had Amari Stoudemire. Amari Stoudemire came there a year before him, but Amari Stoudemire had knee problems. And the New York Knicks signed him because they was desperate because they didn't get LeBron James or Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh. They all went to Miami. And what people don't realize is Carmelo Anthony was supposed to go to Miami with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, because those three guys were on the Olympic team, I believe, in 2008, and they was talking about possibly joining up. And the reason why Carmelo Anthony didn't get on that team because he signed an extension with Denver, and they didn't sign the extension. They just signed a normal contract. They didn't sign an extension, but Carmelo Anthony wanted his money right then and there. So when 2010 came around, Carmelo Anthony was still under contract, and those three guys, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, were free agents. So they all went on the same team, because it could have been Carmelo Anthony. He could have had a couple titles by now if he didn't sign an extension, but he wanted his money. I can't get on the man for wanting his money, but if he would have had a little bit more patience, his career would have turned out different. Now he's gonna be a Hall of Famer because he was a winner. You got to say he was a winner because he took his team to the playoffs, especially in Denver, at the height of his career. Even his rookie year, he took them to the playoffs. So you got to say the guy's a Hall of Famer. But I'm going to say this. He left a lot out there, on the court. He could have did more as far as getting his teammates involved. He could have moved the ball because, like I said, when the ball go to him, he's not passing the ball. Carmelo Anthony finna put it up. He's a scorer. That's what he is. He's kind of like a one-dimensional star player. Was he a franchise player? You have to say he was a franchise player because, he was chosen number 2. Detroit passed up on him. They took Darko Milicic from overseas because if he would have ended up in Detroit with Chauncey Billups and them and Richard Hamilton and Tayshaun Prince and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace when they was at the top of their game, they would have won more titles, but they took the big man. Back then people took the big man. But if he would have went to Detroit, his career would have been different, I believe. But you have to say the guy is a Hall of Famer. A lot of people give him flack and say he's not this, he's not that. He is what he is. He's a dynamic scorer. He's a one-dimensional dynamic scorer who don't really pass the ball, who don't play defense. So to me, he would have made a great number 2. Now he was a number 1 as far as he can get you so far, you know what I'm saying. But he needed to be a number 2 and someone else to be a number 1. That's why he would have been real good with that Miami team. With that Miami team, he could have been a 2A with Dwayne Wade. LeBron James was going to be number 1, but he could have been a 2A, 2B with Dwayne Wade, and they could have won some titles. But like I said, I think Carmelo Anthony is done as far as being a number 1 option. Right now, I think Carmelo Anthony. I mean, his pride may get in the way, but he should be coming off the bench for OKC. You know, he should play with that second unit so he can come in and get as many shots as he can, and the offense could be ran through him. Because him being a number one is just not, it's just not feasible anymore. Now he's having nagging injuries. He had a couple of knee injuries. Had surgery. So right now, Carmelo Anthony, and he's a free agent after this year. I don't see him coming back with OKC. I see Carmelo Anthony maybe trying to go to Houston, maybe pairing up with LeBron James and and someone else in LA, or he may try to go with San Antonio. I believe a good fit for Carmelo Anthony will be San Antonio. Come off the bench, get San Antonio that punch that Ginobili gives them right now. Ginobili is getting long in the tooth. Ginobili is still producing, but he's getting long in the tooth. You can have Carmelo Anthony there with his versatility. And he'll work good in that offense. But as far as him being a number one, option, that's gone. But Carmelo Anthony still got a little game left in him, man. I know he's like 32, maybe 33. I know he's older than LeBron. I know Dwayne Wade and him is older than LeBron, so he's about 33, maybe going on 34. So, he can still shoot the ball. He can still post up. I think he should play the 4 and post up more. He could be more effective. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about Carmelo Anthony. Do y'all think his career could have been better, or do y'all think he got everything he could get out of his career? Just let me know in the comment section.